All right, so we're starting a new series today. We got lots of genres that are possible here, and yeah, let's get into it. So the last series was a bit of a trip. It was all the open instrumentation stuff, and it was pretty bulky. Maybe we'll get something a bit lighter now, a bit more straightforward. Okay, so all my scores that are for guitar, which actually I might not even have three, so let's make sure I can even do this. Yeah, because I moved one of these to the open instrumentation series, so let's make sure there's a recording for all of them. Yeah, this one's a dud, I think. Like maybe this Matthew Lee Knowles piece has a recording. Yeah, I'm gonna disqualify it. I think there's only two scores that would work. So we're rolling again. Choir. Sick. Okay. So yeah, these choir scores are gonna be probably a bit random. I only have eight of them. And yeah, let's just go down the list. So the first one would be Enigma 5 by Beat Führer. It's from 2012, so it's not that new, but it's the newest choir score I have. So let's have a look. Okay, so here's the piece. This is a very extreme kind of score. It's just a facsimile of it. It looks like the composer wrote it probably in mechanical pencil and I mean, Beat was probably using this for conducting the piece, right? We've encountered other facsimiles of his before. Um, Not that his work isn't also published in facsimile, but this doesn't even have front matter, so I'm not sure what the source is exactly. It was uh, given to a Discord group which I was a part of. That's how I got a hold of the score. And this was like a Discord group that was meeting once every couple of months to talk about a piece of contemporary music. I never really presented anything in the short time it was operating, uh, but this was the first score, so that's why I bring it up. This was sort of like the first thing that anyone presented in that group. So you can see the text is kind of broken up into phonemes, which are then kind of spelled out. Um, and it's for two choirs. Not sure if there's any kind of spatialization. The first choir is labeled A, the second choir is labeled B, and there's three singers to each part, SATB, within each choir. So it's like 24 singers total. And I imagine there's going to be some realm of independence between the parts somewhere. So yeah, it's a pretty monumental choir piece. Like it's 15 minutes long and 62 pages, right? So interesting stuff. Definitely going to be very modernist today, which actually is kind of refreshing after a lot of more conceptual things the past couple weeks. Link to a recording is in the video description. Unfortunately, I don't know where to get a hold of this piece, um, as a score, but hopefully your local music library will be able to help you out. Um, yeah, I'll see you in 15 minutes, maybe a bit later in the day. Um, yeah. Okay, so I watched this on my LG TV today, or listened to it there while looking at the score. Um, yeah, it felt good to read through a score while listening to something. I haven't done that in a while. Um, my favorite parts of this were definitely whenever he brought this mixed meter thing back. where he's going from 5/8 to 3/8, or 5/16 to 3/8 to 5/16 to 4/8 to 7/16, etc. There's a couple moments like that, and it's always like really, really fun, like usually hawketing stuff. And he has this really great way of writing this sort of like cascading gesture, which I found really inspiring, where it's like the whole choir just kind of like avalanches down. Sometimes it's in straight 30 seconds, sometimes it's more elaborate rhythms than that, but it always starts on an offbeat. It's very propulsive. Um, and I also really like his notation of mixed meter on top of the staff. It's nice. Um, so I didn't do any research going into this one. I have here pulled up a little like blog post of sorts. So Enigmas 1 through 4 apparently were all for youth choir and they were much shorter. Then this is a more substantial piece which he wrote in 2012 for double choir, obviously. And the text is, I'm assuming, Italian, about shadows and reflections. Um, so yeah, the opening and ending are both really strong. And then it has this sort of variation form that kind of flows very seamlessly, like from one idea to the next, kind of like, some ideas are sharply contrasted, other ideas kind of smoothly, what do you call it, are elided, all the sort of, like, it's very contrapuntal music. He has this interesting opening with the voices in these octaves, right, starting on a B flat, interspersed with other ideas. And then he quickly goes from that to the most extensive, like quiet section in the piece, where you have a lot of unpitched whispered sounds. So I thought that was kind of a cool way to start it, is like you give a clear opening and then you go to the most extreme section. And then the ending, he kind of like, he has this thing towards the end, which is building, 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 right? It goes through a few variations, but it's just constantly building the tension up and up. And then he kind of just quits it. And then you get sort of like a coda, like it's a very obvious coda. So I like that too. It's kind of like traditional form stuff, like very basic traditional form. Things like codas and introductions, but just used very clearly and not in a pretentious way, just using them, using form the way it should be. So what is the text at one point here? One will see forms and shapes of people and animals which simply follow these animals and people wherever they flee to, and it will be the movement of the one like the other, but it will appear marvelous to one because of the various shapes to which they transform. That might be the whole text, actually, which is Leonardo da Vinci, a Leonardo da Vinci quote, I guess. Okay, that's the first episode of Choir. I have 7 other scores, potentially 7 other episodes if I can find recordings, and who knows, maybe there's a few other scores in my spreadsheet that should be listed as choir but aren't. Um, it's one of those more nebulous genres, like when does it stop being for voices and start being for choir? I guess I'll have to make that call. Um, but thank you for embarking on this genre with me. It should be a lot of fun. Today I'm going to be listening to a choir piece by Jordan Nobles. Just pull it up here. I believe it's called Lux Antiqua. It should be from 2011. And it's for Spatialized Choir, SSAATB. Um, and it's dedicated to Carl Sagan and Andrewian, commissioned by Eric Banks and the Esoterics. This is a piece that was premiered in North Vancouver. I guess it was written in North Vancouver, but premiered in Seattle, Washington. My mistake. It is 5 minutes long, so it's not a super big piece. So it's about the night sky. All of the text is the names of different stars. The stars chosen for this piece are not all the brightest or closest stars, but out of the multitude of named stars in the night sky, I chose the ones that I felt had the most beautiful names. So there you go. Alva, Ashela, Alcyone, Alhena, Aludra, Avoir, etc. So Sirius is in there though. That's a big one. And Vega. It's the spatialization works this way. Preferably, they should be surrounding the audience and utilizing balconies or lofts. The exact layout will vary depending on the venue. As long as they're evenly distributed throughout the space, it should be fine. And then the first half of the piece is in free time, and the conductor is only cueing entrances of each group. And then I guess later they are beating time. Thank the Lord, there is a pronunciation guide here with IPA, super useful. And this is how the beginning is cued. It's sort of like in approximate time cueing different repeated little motifs, which in this case are members of the ensemble whispering, right? So it's all unsynchronized. The piano part here has the notes that are being sung just for the sake of rehearsal. So it looks like it starts with a little cluster, C, E, flat, and D. You add the G under that, and then the chord slowly morphs. Nothing too atonal sounding. Yeah, so the whispering things turn into repeated pitches, which then turn into little melodies with a narrow range. And then you start to get groups of the ensemble singing together. And the last half of the piece, it looks like you have to follow the conductor because everyone's singing together. So, oh, and then it ends with the thing it started with. That's okay. It's a little bit cheesy, but um, yeah, it looks like pretty accessible post-tonal, probably just tonal, you could say, piece. With some skill behind the execution of it. Let me look up. I'm not too curious about the premiere, but I would like to look up the two dedicatees here. Carl Sagan probably doesn't need an introduction. Andrian wrote Cosmos, the documentary series that was hosted by Carl Sagan in 1980. So there you go. It's definitely dedicated to them because that show was about stars and the universe and stuff. So link to the recording is in the video description. I'll see you in 5 minutes and let you know my thoughts listening to this today. Okay, so I take back what I said about the ending. I think it kind of works, mostly because it's like kind of a sudden change in texture, so it kind of keeps your attention. I think I like that it kind of focused on one name at a time, and only in the climax of the piece did you kind of get more than one name at a time. It was pretty intelligible. I also think that if it was spatialized, the spatialization would really help to convey the text. It'd be kind of cool. This performance, it doesn't look like they actually spatialized it at all, and it's just 1/2 apart. I don't know if it's ideal. They still did a really good job singing it, but I think some of the message is lost just watching it like that. Uh, yeah, I like how simple the piece is. It's very like one idea and then another idea. All the ideas are very clear. The notation serves it well, and yeah, I think a lot of young composers wouldn't even bother to play around with aleatory. So it's nice that, well, very few composers in Canada do aleatoric music to begin with. So, just the fact that this was going on in 2011, I think it's important, and it's a nice piece of choir music from the West Coast. Okay, so today I'm listening to a choir piece by Matthew Lee Knowles. It's called Worse. It was written in 2021 and it's fairly short, 6 minutes long. Technically, it's for choir and organ. Um, the way I'm thinking of going through the choir scores in the series is like if it features one other instrument, I'll include it. I might even include some pieces that are for chamber voices, and I'm just going to try to go reverse chronological as best as I can. So this is one that was in the spreadsheet, which I missed. It's actually the most recent organ piece I have. And I'm assuming this is the uh, lyricist, Fleur Adcock. It's super slow at quarter equals 20. And I believe that's the tempo the whole time. It's just 4 pages. Why don't I just read the text, which is kind of staggered in the four different voice parts. There are worse things than having behaved foolishly in public. There are worse things than these miniature betrayals committed or suspected. There are worse things than not being able to sleep for thinking about them. It is 5 a.m. All the worst things come stalking in and stand icily about the bed, looking worse and worse and worse. Okay. Sorry if that was hard to read. It's because all the voices are a little bit out of sync. So, okay. Fleur Adcock, born 1934, died in 2024, so just 3 years after this piece was composed. Born in Papakura, New Zealand, raised partly in England. She spent most of her adult life in the UK, where she became a prominent figure in contemporary poetry. Her work is characterized by wit, a conversational tone, and psychological insights, and explores themes of identity, place, and the complexities of human relationships. Her poetry, as stated in the introduction to this wiki, it says it's concerned with themes of place, human relationships, and everyday activities. But frequently there is a dark twist given to the mundane events written about. Her early work is influenced by classicism. Her later work is looser in structure and more concerned with stream of consciousness. Uh, her poems are often written from the perspective of an outsider. Yeah, let me pull up the recording for this one because it's kind of interesting. So I do want to say something about it before we get into it. So the recording is all four parts are performed by the same singer, Ryan Gleave. Um, and there's an animation by D. Adams. And here's the text in a much easier to read format. um, this performance is an attempt at capturing the sensations at play when anxiety makes sleep impossible, which is very apt because I slept maybe about 1 hour last night and struggling to have a nap today. So yeah, this is fated, I think. Link to this video is in the video description. I highly encourage you to spend 7 minutes listening to it today. Okay, cool. So I'm glad I picked this one because this is kind of like a hidden gem. The final product is very different from the score. The score tells you the pieces. I mean, they cut the organ accompaniment from the piece, so it's just a cappella. And Ryland's performance is really intense. I apologize if I called them Ryan in the previous half of the video. Rylan. Yeah, so I think it's worth talking about the two other artists that made this project possible. So Rylan is a musician working at the intersection of doom metal, orchestral, and experimental music, and under the moniker All Men Unto Me, Rylan creates genre-merging work, confronting identity and boundaries, fusing metal, sacred music, and radical vocal practice. So I think all of the notes at D5 and above in this performance were modified, I guess, because Rylan couldn't hit that note, or maybe they arbitrarily chose that register to do like inhale screams and like metal vocals, I think. So really fascinating because their performance was dead on rhythmically, but the technique like created all these other rhythms that emerged out of the texture kind of thing. Um, yeah, let's look up. Yes. So here's the Bandcamp. This is their album Requiem, I guess the second album. And this is the first one, In Chemical Transit. So if you liked this performance, I guess this is the next thing to start getting into. The animator Daniel Adams. There's a link to his YouTube channel here. I noticed. Um, and yeah, it looks like a lot of different experimental animation type things with like video mixing, like different projected video. It looks like. This one he might have been animating directly onto film. I'm not sure. Like, it was like etched maybe, or it was just sort of digitally manipulated. Uh, there's a bunch of videos here about, um, well, it seems to be parts of a documentary about perspectives on public sector strikes. Uh, okay, so some 2011, some sort of political documentary stuff, and then these animations are more recent. So yeah, that was worse. Tomorrow we're gonna look at a piece by Jordan Nobles from 2009 or something. So yeah, today I'm listening to a choir piece by Jordan Nobles called Coriolis. It's for 12 voices and it was written in Vancouver in 2006. The 12 singers are supposed to be around the audience in this way. So, yeah, the sopranos kind of form a triangle that's equidistant, as do the tenors and the altos and the basses. And it looks like it's a 5 minute piece. The notation reflects the spatialization, so you have the soprano choir, alto choir, Actually, it doesn't really reflect the spatialized any sort of spatialized grouping. It's just kind of divided. But you do have the Roman numerals that correspond to this diagram, looks like. And I don't know what the lyrics are. I think they're just different vowel sounds spelled with the IPA system. And it starts with a bunch of swells on a B or an A or a G, I guess. Eh, it's all white keys for a long time. Uh, and then you get little phrases. Yeah, it all seems very contrapuntal. You can see that things kind of cascade from one player to another. So there's like definitely these circling effects. Other than that, I think it's pretty straightforward choir piece. Um, Link to a recording is in the video description. I'll let you know what I think of this one. Um, should be able to find a YouTube video, I think. And I've done a bunch of Jordan Noble's scores at this point between this series and the open instrumentation series, so I refer you to these episodes if you like this piece. Okay, so I listened to the Canadian Music Center BC recording. I'm assuming this is from around the same time that it was written. Uh, yeah, I sort of stopped looking at the score at a certain point just because I felt it was just easier to look at the video. Uh, to be honest, it didn't really capture my imagination as much as some of Jordan's other pieces. It seemed like a pretty like bland, just like contrapuntal tonal piece, but it did sort of build to a climax really well, and also I can probably imagine that the spatialization really brings a piece to life. It probably is difficult to get a good sense of it just from the stereo version. I mean, you can see on the page how quickly it's moving around the ensemble, and I think that's probably one of the more technical aspects of the composition. Honestly, it's just the spatialization of it. Also, I kind of wish it had text. I find it kind of hard to. It's not as engaging for me to listen to choir music without text. I'll just be honest. Even the other choir piece of his we looked at that had like just the names of stars as the text, that was much more engaging just because it gave you something to imagine, you know. Uh, so the next choir piece, I don't remember offhand what it is. I think it'll be, yeah, I think we're making a bit of a jump into the 1990s with this piece by Victor Rasgado, um, a composer who we've looked at a lot on the channel, but not a lot in the past uh, 3 or 4 series. Um, yeah. Okay, today's piece is a choir piece by Mexican composer Victor Rasgado. It's called Ataviaos, and this is the score here. We haven't listened to a Victor Rasgado piece in a long time, but I have a lot of fond memories of getting to know his music on this channel. He's kind of like a cross between Franco Donatoni type like high modernism and like Carlos Chavez or like it's sort of very informed um by like Mexican uh I guess you could say concert music. like 20th century Mexican concert music. It's really informed by all of that, but I would compare him most closely to Donatoni, honestly, in terms of his style. Uh, this might be a note about the premiere. So it seems to have been premiered in 1994. And then we have the text, which I could translate. I might as well. The duration is 5 minutes. We have a note here about the accidentals. Probably they have, they are like reapplied every note or something. And the textures, I was glancing at the score yesterday. The textures that you see in it are very similar to some of the choir textures in his opera Anacleto Morones. So you have like this solo versus group kind of texture, right? So solo line on its own, solo line with the group in some sort of chord. We have a pretty extensive tenor solo. Then you have like more independent lines, but it's still like ensemble versus soloist. Also, it's dedicated to Raimundo Sesma. Let's first look at the text here. I raise my drum high, I gather my friends, there they rejoice, I make them sing. We must go thus, remembering, be happy, O friends. Perhaps now, calmly, and so it must be there. But here the law of flowers reigns, but here the law of song reigns. Here on earth be happy, O friends adorned. Um, adorned being sort of a rough translation of the last word, Ataviaos. Um, yeah, so it's actually um, pretty positive, like sort of celebratory text. But then there's this question in the middle, which is more existential, like why are we here? Um, kind of interesting. As for the dedicatee here, let's look them up. Raimundo Sesma is visual artist of some kind, multidisciplinary Mexican artist. So this bio is very hard to extract any information from. It's basically just a list of awards, and I guess he does a mix of architecture and visual art, maybe some photography. Oh, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, but I guess in a sense, this is the kind of multimedia work he does. Definitely something that can inform the way you listen to this piece. I mean, this is a very striking work, even just viewing it digitally like this. His canvases seem pretty square, unless I'm just seeing them cropped. But no, I think he works in this sort of square format mostly, almost square. Here's a taller canvas. It's almost like two separate canvases. Okay, that's all I have to say to introduce this piece. It does look complicated on the page, but it's also at quarter equals 46, so it's very slow. Um, yeah, link to a recording is in the video description. Let's have a listen. Should be just 5 minutes. Okay, sweet. Yeah, I was really stimulated by this thing. It's a really detailed and nice little score. I love some of these moments that pop out of the texture. And it's amazing what he's able to do just with like a drone and whatever he wants on top of that drone. Like, moment that really stuck out for me was like this Pero Acqui Pio Moso moment. It's just like a couple measures where the tenor holds this E and everybody's like almost like barking in this like a little contrapuntal thing. And then quickly the basses and then uh, mezzo sopranos, sopranos, everybody gets locked into the same drone, and then we like slide into this F It's really cool. Um, part of me wonders if there's like a larger pattern to these drones, like what the how the notes work. It starts on that E, then goes to B, then B flat, I guess. And there is a bit of a melody here at the start, which comes back a few times. It's pretty catchy, especially that rising tritone, I think. Yeah, this performance was interesting. It wasn't soloists like I thought it was going to be. It really did seem to be like a small choir, and they were pretty good with the pitches. Obviously, kind of like in the Beat Führer piece we looked at a few days ago, the more chromatic stuff gets a little bit lost, but they manage to lock in when it matters and it holds together. So, I mean, the pitch gets a little bit lost, but that's not always a bad thing. I mean, uh, it just makes you more aware that you're of the physicality of the medium, you know. So, yeah, that was adornments or whatever. Ataviaos. Okay, so today's piece is some excerpts from György Ligeti's Nonsense Madrigals. This is a chamber voice piece. It's for six male voices. Uh, like the two movements I have are I simply have them because I received them for a survey course. I think we were talking about this in one lecture, and the score must have belonged to um, my teacher, or they took it out of the music library and scanned it for that lecture. Basically, I just have movements one and three. So first one is called Two Dreams and Little Bat, uh, and I believe it has two different texts. Yeah, what are the texts at the bottom here? The Dream of a Girl Who Lived at Seven Oaks, and The Dream of a Boy Who Lived at Nine Elms, both by William Brighty Rands, 1864. And then the other text is the third text, I guess, is Twinkle Twinkle Little Bat, from Lewis Carroll, 1865. So probably from Alice in Wonderland. Then the text here is just the alphabet, right? Just the letters of the alphabet. Now, both of these are commissioned for the King's Singers with assistance from a grant from the Barlow Endowment for Music Composition at Brigham Young University and the Berlin Festival. So it's very complex singing because it's for a specific group commissioned for a new music festival of some kind. Let me find the texts so I can read them out. That way, once we listen to them all overlapping, we can make sense of it a little bit more. Seven sweet singing birds up in a tree, seven swift sailing ships white upon the sea, seven bright weathercocks shining in the sun, seven slim race horses ready for a run, seven gold butterflies flitting overhead, seven red roses blowing in a garden bed, seven white lilies with honeybees inside them, seven round rainbows with clouds to divide them, seven pretty little girls with sugar on their lips, seven witty little boys who everybody tips, seven nice fathers to call little maid joys, seven nice mothers to kiss the little boys. Seven nights running I dreamt it all plain, with bread and jam for supper I could dream it all again. Nine grenadiers with bayonets and their guns, nine bakers' baskets with hot cross buns, nine brown elephants standing in a row, nine new velocipedes, good ones to go, nine knickerbocker suits with buttons all complete, nine pairs of skates with straps for the feet, nine clever conjurers eating hot coals, nine sturdy mountaineers leaping on their poles, Nine little drummer boys beating on their drums, nine fat aldermen sitting on their thumbs, nine new knockers to our front door, nine new neighbors that I never saw before. 9 times running, I dreamt it all plain. With bread and cheese for supper, I could dream it all again. So obviously they're both counterpoints. Like they're both very similar poems. But the boy one definitely has some more like war inspired elements, some more like possibly traumatic things, especially like the dreaming of new neighbors and like people invading your space and stuff. The poet, better known as Matthew Brown, was a prominent English writer from the Victorian era, mostly remembered for his children's poetry. Uh, yeah, his poems have a focus on themes of childhood innocence. Yeah, he's been compared to Edward Lear and Lewis Carroll, who also have nonsense verse. What? Yeah, so obviously Lewis Carroll wrote The Adventures of Alice in Wonderland, where I'm assuming this text is from. Yes, it's recited by the Mad Hatter in chapter 7. Twinkle, twinkle, little bat, how I wonder where you're at. Up above the world you fly, like a tea tray in the sky. So, yeah, those are the two poets and texts. Um, these two movements run pretty short altogether, maybe like 5 or 6 minutes. The text is, sorry, the instrumentation is like two countertenors, tenor, two baritones, bass. And I think that's the same in the other one. Yes. So, pretty difficult piece to put on. I don't think it's likely to be performed that often, but perhaps this group, the King Singers, performed it several times after it was commissioned. Link to a recording is in the video description. When I first was introduced to this piece, I really loved it. It really captured my imagination. So I hope that's a similar experience for you. And yeah, I'll see you all in 6 minutes. Okay, yeah, so this is really great example of Ligeti's music. It's super accessible and yeah, I understand why it was used in a classroom context. It's just a really good example of what his range of composing. You have like this really textural, slow piece, which is reminiscent of a Lux Eterna and his like 60s stuff. And then this really complicated, dense contrapuntal like first movement. Um, but they're both pretty yeah, simple. I like there's like some really great moments, right, that come to mind just rehearing it. I like how he structures the first one, where you have like sort of everyone, like it builds tension when you get to that part where both poems are talking about running, right? So it's like all these ideas are running through your head. Where's that moment? I dreamt running, you know. It's so intense. And then you get this climax, I dreamt it all plain with bread and jam or whatever. And I think the sort of moment where it settles down is like I could dream it all again, which is kind of the last sentiment of both poems really, and kind of obvious when you think about the big decisions like having the girl's poem in the higher voices, the boy's poem in the three lower voices, just having them run at the same time. I think he does a really good job of just like capturing every image rhythmically, you know. He comes up with a rhythm that works. The Twinkle Twinkle Little Bat is just in the tenor. I guess it's like a cantus firmus for one moment here. And they just say Twinkle Twinkle Little Bat. They don't go any further into the poem. And it's yeah, it's sort of at this moment where the higher voices have to catch up with the lower ones. Like the lower ones have already got into the I dreamt running, but the top voices still need to convey these last two lines about seven nice fathers and seven nice mothers. And then yeah, the alphabet song is great. Great example of something Ligeti did like dozens of times in his music. This like cluster that spreads out. So I think this one was 1993, and then we're working backwards here. So the next piece should be 1980s, 1982. Yeah. Okay, so today I'm listening to a short, sort of enigmatic piece by Luigi Nono for chamber voices. It's not really a choir piece. It's for two soprano, mezzo soprano, and contralto, and it's called Donde, Estas, Hermano. Uh, yeah, very weird score. Quarter equals 30 at the start, with some fermatas and double fermatas on the bar lines, and then five Ps at the beginning, but also reaching up to forte, so huge dynamic range. And it's just a couple pages. I want to say 36 measures. The 28th of September 1982, Giudecca. That's what it says at the end, at least. So in this edition, the dynamic markings, which Nono indicated in a general manner in this manuscript, have been extended to individual parts as appropriate. Nono's original phrase markings have been respected in order to retain both their expressive and structural significance. The syllables added at measure 7 and 31 were derived from a secondary source. The information provided by soprano Ingrid Ada Jesseman. So, yeah, I guess this was the publisher prepared this engraving from the facsimile. The publisher being Ricordi. I'm going to see if I can find anything on this. Not sure. By the way, the title translates to like, "Oh brother, where art thou?" Okay, anything on the Earcam website? Slightly different composition date from Earcam of 1981, but I doubt there's going to be any extra info here. Also, the only text is some oohs and ahs, and of course, Donde, Estas, Hermano. For some reason, the website isn't even loading. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with my internet connection, so why don't we just jump into this? It's a 5-minute piece, and I encourage you to click on the link in the video description to listen to it yourself, and we'll regroup after this little transition here. Okay, yeah, this was a really interesting piece. Apparently, it's from this album, Vox Nova Ensemble, Voices of Protest. So it is like a Naxos recording, I guess, of bunch of Luigi Nono's works. As we have mentioned on our previous Luigi Nono episode, Nono is like a left-wing, very politically involved kind of proponent of serial, 12-tone music, etc. And yeah, this piece sounds really, really hard to sing. I like the mix of silences in it, and I feel like a lot of I might be missing something with this score because a lot of these specific indications could be explained better. Like, what is the difference between fermata over a bar line and a fermata over a breath mark. Is there any difference? Um, how does he really want these dynamics? He has like this high D happens a couple of times at the beginning on a U vowel in this case at 5 Ps. Like, what does he actually want there? It'd be really fascinating to kind of see him work in rehearsal with singers on this. But of course, there's no record of that. Um, and yeah, other things kind of like this one big slur that I guess applies to all the voices because it starts on a rest in the top voice. Just little things like that, which are very strange. The pacing is really good, I think. The way that he introduces the words interspersed with the same oohs and ahs. It's interesting. Very dramatic. Today we're going to be listening to James Tenney's A Rose is a Rose is Around, which is one of his postal pieces. So this was written on a postcard in March of 1970 and given to Philip Corner, who we will look up in just a second. Basically, it's a two-part round, um, clearly for voices, written in treble clef, and you can kind of see that the round is written in this on this circular staff in 2 layers. It looks like it's offset by 6/8 notes, and it's unclear if you could continue the process with more voices. The text just reads, a rose is 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 and that at the end loops back. So who was Philip Corner? Philip Corner was a American composer, apparently, born in 1933, still alive and living in New York. He was also a trombonist, alto hornist, vocalist, pianist, music theorist, music educator, and visual artist. BA from CCNY, MA from Columbia, where he studied with Henry Cowell and Otto Luning. So this is like the 1950s. So he would have been a contemporary of James Tenney. Many of his scores are open-ended in that some elements are specified, but others are left partially or entirely to the discretion of the performers. So some employ standard notation, but he also has graphic scores and text scores. Yeah, kind of interesting that James would write him this vocal piece, which is kind of calligraphic, right? He apparently had this interest in calligraphy, I guess, not necessarily Korean, but he studied it with Ki Sung Kim in the 1960s. Okay, so with that short introduction, I think we can listen to this very short piece realized by a vocal ensemble, probably not a choir, but let's see what we can find. Recording is in the video description if you want to listen to exactly the same version I am. Okay, so yeah, this was a 1 minute recording. Pretty straightforward, just an untrained choir singing the song. Yeah, the text I didn't realize is by Gertrude Stein. So let's take it from this poem called Sacred Emily. I don't know when it was written. It's probably in the public domain by now or close to it. So I'm just gonna read through it to close off the video. Argonauts, that is plenty. Cunning Saxon symbol, symbol of beauty. thimble of everything, cunning clover thimble, cunning of everything, cunning of thimble, cunning, cunning. Place in pets, night town a glass. Color mahogany center. Rose is a rose is a rose is a rose. Loveliness extreme, extra gators, loveliness extreme, sweetest ice cream. Page ages, page ages, page ages. Wiped, wire, wire. Sweeter than peaches and pears and cream, wiped wire, extra extreme. Put measure treasure. Tables track, nursed, dough, that will do. Cup or. Excessively illegitimate, pussy, what? Current secret sneezers, ever. Mercy for a dog, metal make metal, able. A go to green and a letter spoke, a go to green or praise or worships. Door, do or. Table linen, wet spoil, gators and knees and little spools, already silk lining. Suppose Mrs. curls to butter, curls. Settle stretches sea at till, Louise, sunny, sail or rustle, morn and morning, the way to say patter. Deal own a robber, a high B and A, perfect sight. Little things singer, Jane aiming, not in description, day way, a blow is delighted. Today I'm looking at a score by Iannis Xenakis. It's his choir piece Nuits or Nights, which is for 12 mixed voices. Kind of like, is it SATB? Yeah, so it's three of each, kind of like the Bad Führer piece we looked at. This piece I think is from I want to say 1968 or something. And yeah, it's edition Salabert. I guess IU South Bend Music Library is where this was scanned. This work was commissioned by the Gulbenkian Foundation, and the first performance took place at the Royan Festival on the 7th of April, 1968, given by the soloists of the ORTF, directed by Marcel Courreau, I guess. Dedicated to you, unknown political prisoners, Julian Narciso, Spain, since 1946. Filinis Kostas, Greece, since 1947. Erythriadou, Eli, since 1950. Amaro, Joachim, since 1952, Portugal. And thousands of forgotten ones whose names are lost. Whose very names are lost. So, yeah, this is a really interesting choir piece. It starts with these sort of like quarter tone meandering lines that are all in the same register. Triple forte. And I guess the piece only uses quarter tone and three-quarter tone sharps. Everywhere, absolutely without vibrato, flat voices, rough, uproariously, pronounce distinctly the consonants, and yeah, I guess the different phonetic symbols are here, maybe. Yeah, like this th symbol, as in theater, English. This sh symbol, as in the French, français. The French ch, and then the u from French, and the y from German, j, and the ach, I guess, from German, h. So I guess there is no text with this one. It's more just like sounds. Okay, yeah, weird. So like quickly glancing through it. we kind of have each like group of three voices being treated as its own choir, different combinations of them all coming together around here, and then we get like the more percussive stuff with like eighth notes and quintuplets, and then mixes of sustain and rhythmic stuff. Okay, then we get some big glissandi, some unpitched consonants with this like drone getting passed around. More percussive stuff. Yeah, I think further along in the piece we get more like solos. But still, for the most part, the four groups are kind of treated equally. And it ends with the basses. Yes. Okay, so I found a program note for this online. Why don't I read that? It's not by the composer, but I think it's might help explain some of it. So yeah, there's not a Wikipedia page on this, but this Reddit thread had a program note from 2003. Don't know how accurate it is. Uh, I think it's from a performance at the BBC Proms. So yeah, 2003 is obviously many decades after this was premiered. But yeah, here we go. Nuits, composed as a protest against the cruel incarceration of untried political prisoners, perhaps represents the Xenakis factor in its purest form, combining the force of his method with his uncontainable fury. It is his most modern and most ancient work. At its premiere at the Royan Festival, the public clamored for a repeat. It found instant notoriety in the eclectic political storms of Les Événements of the following month. It went to Portugal, then still under military dictatorship. Xenakis argued that people suffering under such regimes should not be boycotted by artists living in freedom. He publicized his protest in the press. It was sung at the Shiraz Festival in Imperial Iran. So, definitely a political work. If you don't know, I think I mentioned this on an earlier Xenakis episode, but Xenakis was a political prisoner for a period of time. He was part of a student movement against the Nazi occupation of Greece, I guess in the 1930s. Or Nuits revisits the long, dark nights of Xenakis' youth in a prison cell in Athens. Hearing the harsh shouts of the guards and screams of prisoners being tortured, it strips vocal music of any known form of language or recognizable words. Fair enough. Replacing them with phonemes from Sumerian and ancient Persian tongues. It peels the skin off words to reveal their inner forms and expose their raw power. So, anyways, Neritza Matosian wrote this program note. It's pretty flowery. I don't know if Xenakis would describe his own music that way at all, but it is dedicated to political prisoners unjustly incarcerated. Link to a recording is in the video description, and I'll let you know my thoughts hearing this for probably the second time ever. And yeah, nice. Yeah. So I really liked revisiting this. I thought it was a lot of fun. Yeah, just very interesting, clear compositional ideas, which are very um, anyone familiar with Xenakis' instrumental works will recognize a lot of these ideas. But hearing them in a vocal idiom, I think is really cool, and it's like it surprisingly really works. It's almost closer to electronic music than a lot of his instrumental music. Just yeah, something about it is very it's very obvious like how the lines and dynamics are shaped, I guess, is what I would say. Like it feels very embodied. But man, to hear something like this in the 1960s live would have been so crazy. And I hope that people continue to listen to this piece and we never lose touch with this moment in modernist music, that results in pieces like this. Yeah, when he first introduces this rhythmic stuff with like the chattering and the 4 against 5 against 3, it's so fun, and I love how much it contrasts with the first couple of minutes of the piece. Um, I mean, right there you got your whole vocabulary for a good piece. So um, yeah, really cool. Tomorrow I'm going to look at a piece by Stockhausen, which isn't exactly a choir piece. Many of you can probably guess which piece I'm thinking of. And that will be even more out there, also from 1960s. So yeah, I look forward to that. It's a longer one tomorrow, so I will actually spend most of my evening just enjoying that. So that was Nuits by Xenakis. Okay, so today we're looking at Stimmen by Karlheinz Stockhausen, which is a piece for 6 singers, which is a really famous example of um, like Stockhausen's more conceptual music. It's based on the harmonic series, so it's not like particularly dissonant or modernist sounding, but as you dig into the score, it's very clearly a Stockhausen score. Um, so my first encounter with this was in my undergrad. I took this out from my local music library. The scan I have here is just the one that's freely available on Scribd. The one I took out of the music library, I think, had English translations, where this is just the German. Um, but if you physically have this universal edition of the score, I think it's quite large. It's like at least tabloid sized, and it's all loose sheets of paper, which once you realize how the score works, makes a lot of sense. So you have the title page, 3 pages of instructions, this page about the premiere. The premiere of this performance took place on December 9th, 1968, in the Maison de la Radio Foyer Bay of the ORTF Paris, in a concert sponsored by the Groupe de Recherche Musicale and the Goethe Institute. The ensemble was the Collegium Vocal Cologne, directed by Wolfgang Fromm. The singers were Dagmar Appel, soprano; Gabi Roden, soprano; Helga Abrecht, mezzo-soprano; Wolfgang Fromm, tenor; Georg Steinhoff, baritone; and Hans Aldrich Billig, bass. And then you have a series of magic names, which are taken from different cultures. Allah from Islam, Indra, Indian, Shiva, Vishnu, Varuna, Yoni, Kala, those are all Indian, Buddha, Chang Tej, also Buddhist, I think, Usiafu, Usineno, then more magic names: Osiris, Isis, Nut, Geb, Atum Ra, Shu, all from Egypt, Ahura Mazda, Persian, Yahweh, Elion, Elohim, Jesus, or Jesus, Turkura, Grogoragali, Duramulam, Munganagana, Abasi Abumo, Mulugu, Owoluwu, Nazami, Wakantanka, Iyadilkil. This one's Navajo, I think. Nihojdan Ezda, Susistinako, Rhea, which is Greek, Aeolus, Uranos, Gaia, Kronos, all of those are Greek, Diana, Roman, Dionysos, Hera, Zeus, Venus, Poseidon, Viracocha, Tamosei, Tamoi, Halaqualup, Rangi, Tangaroa, Maui, so some Polynesian ones here. Hina a Tuatua, Akakai, Sedna, which is actually a planet or planetoid. Singbonga, Luminut, Xochipilli. So now we have Aztec names. Tetionanan, Tochi or Toki, Quetzalcoatl, Quotalecue, Huitzilopochtli, Tezcatlipoca, Tlaloc, Huehueteotl, Shui Tecutli, Mixocoatl, Xachihuitleque, and Huichtocuatl, Sentiotl, Chicomequatl, Shilonen, I'm assuming. And that's all the magic names. And then you have models, right? So there's about 11 magic names to a page, and then 8 or 9 models on each of these pages. Explanation of the text and how it works, I think. Yeah, how to get from one name to the next. And then you have the form schema, which is the thing that looks most like a score here. You can see entrances and exits of different voices. It's kind of like a cutaway score. But there's also these arrows indicating how to get from one thing to another. There's a mix of thick and thin lines here, and also they're numbered 1 to 51, these different sections. There's this circle T symbol, which I'm assuming has something to do with the text. So there's a lot that goes into a performance of this, needless to say. I translated the first little bit of the performance notes. So the first statement says something along the lines of each singer receives the text of these explanations, a form schema, a sheet of models, and a sheet of magical names. And then, so if we look at the number of sheets, does that make sense? Yeah, there's 6 sheets of magical names and 6 sheets of models. So yeah, each singer gets 1 page of each. And the second thing said each singer cuts up their page of magical names and their page of models into cards. And then those cards are matched together in any order. The order can be determined based on musical considerations or decided mid-performance. The singer could shuffle the 2 stacks and just randomly perform from them. So effectively, they're looking at the form schema, which is like their score, and then they also have a magical name in front of them and a form, what was it called? A model at any given time. Um, and then here, this is why this piece has a very rich performance practice. Stockhausen also writes right from the start here. Ideally, everyone should know the form scheme, its models, and magic names by heart and bring the latter two into play depending on the context. Um, and of course, each model and magic name is used only once during a performance, so do not go back to any of them. And Then this third paragraph is about the format of the form schema. So there are 51 combinations of voices numbered from 1 to 51. In each combination, a singer has a thick-lined pitch. He, she, or they chooses one of their models and sings it at this pitch, constantly and periodically repeating the bracketed part of the model. And I can show you that right now. So say you got this page of models here, right? And you were looking at this center one, right? You'd be repeating more or less these vowels um, and this rhythm on whatever pitch you started on. One of the more famous diagrams in the performance notes here is this diamond of vowels. So up here is E, here is U, and this corner is E, all that is like forward. And then this is like which is further back, but also open. Y. And yeah, you're kind of just expected to be able to read those from the models. The models are really the place you see all the phonetic symbols. And there's other stuff too. Like I think some of them you have to like announce the next magical name or something. A lot of weird, unique things going on in different models. Yeah, the average length is over an hour. It is tonal yet also serial. I guess that's a good way of describing it. Um, the word, the German word Stimmung could mean tuning or mood. And it's in just intonation. All six singers are meant to be amplified through six microphones. And they all tune to a low B-flat drone, which is inaudible to the audience, and expand upwards from that through singing harmonics, as I mentioned earlier. So Stockhausen said he spent a month walking along the ruins in Mexico, and this was a primary influence of the piece, trying to recreate that magic space. Some writers have suggested that possibly Stockhausen was influenced by his student Lamont Young in the mid 1960s and the drone music of Young and that sort of minimalist movement that was quickly picking up. Stimmung has had an enormous impact on younger generations of composers, particularly cited by the French spectralists of the 1970s. Yeah, there's other like mythological kind of things attributed to the creation of this piece. So yeah, lots of recordings to choose from with this one. I encourage you to sit back and relax and listen to a performance of this. It doesn't quite make sense to listen with the score, but I guess you could look at the form schema while listening to it if you really wanted to. Um, I put a link in the video description. If I can find it, like this is probably the same YouTube video I listened to back in 2013, and because yeah, this was a really formative kind of thing for me as a composer to hear. Hopefully, it's someone's first time, and I'll see you in an hour. Okay, so my thoughts on this recording. It's pretty nostalgic at first. I found it very relaxing, maybe a bit too relaxing. I think I listened to the whole thing. Um, and yeah, I forgot how exposed some parts are. It is a very intense performance. But yeah, there's just something very charming about it. Um, Hearing all these different vowel sounds happen at the same time, and I think it is long enough that it gives you that minimalism fix without being too boring. I think it's also a very clear example of moment form. the way that it's broken up into these little sections, and they're not that little, but because they're these little repetitive modules, because they're repetitive, I think but also always changing. I think that's what makes it very easy to perceive the different moments that make up the piece. So I guess historically it's really fascinating because it definitely is a commentary on minimalism. Of course, Stockhausen would never say that publicly, but because of his ego and image and stuff. But I think that's pretty obvious what it is, and I think that's really interesting. Uh, yeah, I think it's more accessible than Tierkreis, actually, which is another piece we looked at, Stockhausen's on the channel. But I guess it never really entered the popular consciousness the way that Tierkreis did. Um, yeah. So let me see what's on the docket tomorrow. Score by Morton Feldman, actually, which is for choir and a couple other things. So I'm breaking the rules of the channel a little bit, but yeah, that'll be an interesting one. Okay, so today's piece is called Chorus and Instruments. It's by Morton Feldman. It is a choir piece, but there's also a tuba part and a tubular bells part, I believe. So, not likely to get performed, but I just wanted to share it because it is a physical score. This is a score which I think I found in a free bin of a library. I thought it was a really interesting one, like it caught my eye. There's just this generic Feldman sleeve by Edition Peters, and then the score itself is just this separate thing. Maybe this is one giant, like, architecture-sized sheet of paper, like concert times 2 or something. What would that be, 24 by 10 inches? And maybe this is Chorus and Instruments 2. Maybe it's a sequel to a piece. Yeah, you can see that there's a lot of time signature changes and rests. There's no whole rests used, just kind of blank measures. It looks like a facsimile, like you have Feldman's signature at the top pretty much. Dedicated to the Brandeis University Choral Union, directed by Alvin Lucier. So, interesting little piece of history. Above the tempo marking, it says extremely quiet. Otherwise, there's no dynamics. And yeah, it's just a very beautiful little published thing. It's just 2 pages, and it was written in 1967, the 25th of March. The Edition Peters sleeve is interesting too. You got a huge list of Feldman's works on the front here. So all of the durations, extensions, intersections, piano pieces, projections, intermissions, vertical thoughts 1 through 5. So we've covered a lot of these pieces. I'm assuming all of these are pre-1967. Maybe some of them are post, but I'm assuming this sleeve dates from around the same time as the publication. So I'm seeing a lot of grid paper pieces and not a lot of pieces dedicated to specific people. Yeah, which I think is more common as a title convention in his later stuff. And then the other page here has like similar composers. So The catalog of John Cage is available upon request. That's what it says at the top. Then we got some Cornelius Cardew, Henry Cowell, Kazuo Fukushima, Lou Harrison, Toshi Ichiyanagi, Mauricio Kagel, Ligeti. We just have Aventures, Requiem, and Volumina. So not a lot of Ligeti, I guess, because it's a really old score. Toshiro Miyazumi. Not familiar with that composer at all, but there's a huge selection here. Robert Moran, David Beck as just a single piece. Bunch of stuff by Roger Reynolds. Kind of interesting that they group Roger Reynolds with all these other contemporaneous composers. Toru Takemitsu. The three big hits, I would say, Green, Music of Tree, and November Steps. Those are all huge orchestra pieces of Takemitsu's. And then a whole bunch of Christian Wolff. And I think we've gone over a couple of these scores in PDF form for 1, 2, or 3 people. I think we have an episode on. And also I've done pairs as an episode. But yeah, very eclectic little thing. And it's all like Japanese and American composers, loosely associated with John Cage. Okay, maybe there's a program note here. This is like a huge write-up, actually. Never read it before. By Feldman himself. My earliest recollection of music, I couldn't have been more than 5, is my mother holding one of my fingers and picking out Eli Eli with it on the piano. At the age of 12, I was fortunate enough to come under the tutelage of Madame Marina Press, a Russian aristocrat. Okay. My first meeting with John Cage was at Carnegie Hall when Metropolis conducted the Webern Symphony. I believe that was the winter of 1949, and I was about 24 years old. The audience reaction to the piece was so antagonistic and disturbing that I left immediately afterwards. I was more or less catching my breath in the empty lobby. When John Cage came out, I recognized him, though we had never met, walked over, and as though I had known him all my life, said, "Wasn't that beautiful?" A moment later, we were talking animatedly about how beautiful the piece sounded in so large a hall. We immediately made arrangements for me to visit him. So, yeah, this is like a life story, almost. More than a biography. Kind of like chronicling Feldman's career up until his Duration series, which I'm assuming is 1960s, 1967-ish. So we've got a whole paragraph about Projection 2 for flute, trumpet, violin, and cello. So like his grid paper stuff. It's interesting. I'm not going to read it all right now on camera, but maybe after I listen to this. This piece is on YouTube. I haven't listened to it before. Recording is in the video description. I encourage you to give it a listen because it's not very long. I'm assuming it's about 5 minutes or so. And yeah, I'll see you on the other side. Also, of course, no text for this one. It's just oohs and ahs, probably. Okay, yeah, so I thought this was really hauntingly beautiful, and it's funny, like tuba, I played tuba in high school. Chimes, I have in multiple pieces of my own. Like, I think these are 2 of my favorite instruments, plus choir, and it's a really fascinating sound world. The tuba kind of just extends the whole range of the ensemble downward very far. The chimes add this other kind of I guess ADSR, right? It has different envelope that none of the other ensemble members can imitate, so it really sticks out too. It's a really good example of Feldman's sort of middle period. find it a lot more interesting than some of the other pieces of his that we looked at from the 1960s. Mostly on this channel, we've just looked at his piano stuff, though. I'm pretty impressed that this choir was able to sing this because it's very chromatic, and there's a lot of like Debussy and stuff. But yeah, it was a really good performance, and the recording actually was the premiere recording, as it turns out. I don't know how much this thing has been performed. Probably not a lot. Yeah, short and sweet, I would say. I think this is the penultimate choir episode. We might just have one more tomorrow. Well, we definitely have at least one more. So, yeah, thanks for joining me exploring this physical score. I definitely would never have gotten to know this piece if I didn't randomly find this thing. So, yeah, it's a nice sort of fated thing. And yeah, thank you for listening with me today. Okay, so today is the final episode of the choir series on this channel, and it's the oldest piece in of the scores that I have. It's from 1962. It's Misa in quarter de tono, I guess. Mass in quarter tones by Julián Carrillo. And this is also our first Carrillo episode, so I do want to get into him and his biography a little bit. But this is a standard Mass, Catholic Mass. I think it was dedicated to one of the popes, whoever was the pope in 1962. And it's a quarter tone piece. So you can see here the way the octave is divided up. He uses this symbol, which is just like a little dash after the note to indicate that it's raised by a quarter tone. And if the dash is angling downward, then it's lowered by a quarter tone, right? So he has here C quarter tone sharp, C sharp quarter, C3 quarter tone sharp, D quarter tone sharp, D sharp, D3 quarter tone sharp, E, etc. As opposed to actually changing the sharp or the flat symbol. This symbol, you seemingly have to indicate it every time it happens, but it's separate from the accidentals. So say you already have a C sharp in the measure somewhere, this would raise that C sharp by a quarter tone, right? So it's not an accidental, it's more like a additional symbol. This piece is also for men's chorus, so that's this is the only men's chorus piece I think that we've looked at in the series, so that's nice. It's got a Kyrie, a Gloria, a Credo, a Sanctus, and I'm assuming an Agnus, that's separate, and no Benedictus, I guess. Yeah, dedicated to Pope John the 13th, born in 1875, died in 1965, so just 3 years after this piece. He was a composer, conductor, violinist, and music theorist, Mexican composer. And he had his own theory of microtonal music. He studied abroad, so he was admitted to Leipzig Royal Conservatory before returning to Mexico. He also presented a paper in 1900 at the International Congress of Music in Paris. There he proposed that each note is one sound. Each note name should be a single syllable, and he proposed 35 monosyllabic names. Then after his studies at Leipzig, he went to Belgium to continue his violin studies. He composed a string quartet in 1903 at the Ghent Royal Conservatory of Music, and then he returned to Mexico and started teaching. Oh, wait, he returned to Mexico in 1904. Then he fled to the US, which is when he started to come up with his 13th sound theory or his microtonal music theory. That was in New York. And then he returned home in 1918 after that. So, pretty successful career as a conductor, directed two Beethoven festivals in 1920 and 1921. And his 13th sound idea was heavily debated, uh, and it became his whole thing, I guess, because it was so controversial in Mexico. Then he received some microtonal commissions, and I guess the rest is history. Yeah, this piece is from his last years, so this paragraph might be relevant. In 1960, he composed his canton atonal, 64 voces, atonal canon for 64 voices, and also this mass for Pope John the 13th. I guess it wasn't published until 2 years later. And then he also wrote Bulbacheos, which was a piece for piano in 16th tones and orchestra. So yeah, really illustrious career, successful guy. He has a statue dedicated to him. It looks pretty intense, very imposing. And he also has pretty sizable tombstone. Um, yeah, I think he lived a pretty long life considering like 1875, that is very old. It was a very long time ago when he started studying music. So it's almost like a window into a different world, like yes, he did compose this piece in the 60s, but his life spans a really interesting period in classical music, so especially in Mexico. So with that, I will direct you to a recording in the video description. That's what I'm listening to today. This music isn't very well performed, so the performance might not be of the best quality, but it'll get the job done. Um, let's get into this piece, start exploring it. Uh, nice to round off the series with some quarter tone music. Okay, so hopefully you listened along or intend to listen along. Um, yeah, it's a 40-minute recording, so I think it's probably a bit under tempo. Um, there isn't really any specific tempo indications in the score. It's kind of just like some stuff is fast, some stuff is slow. I think you see largo, lento, animated, things like that as indications. And their tuning is pretty out of whack, but I actually didn't mind the faster stuff. It was just in the slower sections where it was really obvious that they were struggling with the quarter tone stuff. So yeah, my favorite moments were actually the faster moments, like the Benedictus was pretty metal, and I really liked the Credo overall. But that could just be because of the performance. It might not speak to the composition so much. Um, yeah, it's a fascinating little piece. It made me like curious about this system. So I pulled up the 13th sound wiki here. So yeah, this is Carrillo's microtonal music theory. Dates all the way back to 1900. Basically, he's just like he just has this notation system he's developed, which encourages performers to explore these notes in between notes of the 12 equally tempered scale, right? So he doesn't really refer to them as quarter tones because they could be tempered in other ways, the same way that the 12 notes of the chromatic scale can be tempered in different ways. And it's mostly something he explored through his violin. So something which has a who doesn't like a violin doesn't really have frets, right? So it's more, I guess, a vocal thing. I think it's pretty exemplified in this piece. But anyways, his first composition with this style was from 1922. So that really predates Parch's Genesis of the Music, like by about 30 years almost, 20 something years. So yeah, this stuff, he was starting to formalize this stuff very early. Um, and I think it's kind of fascinating that it didn't really take shape until he was in America. But he was interested in it certainly while studying in Europe as well. Um, I just thought that was, yeah, because the style of this piece actually has a lot of chordal harmonies. It kind of reminds me of like American composers of the time, maybe like Copland. Um, and he uses the quarter tone scale a lot, so you have a lot of scalar motion with quarter tones, which I think makes this pretty accessible. It kind of reminds me of the popularity of Angine de Poitrine, that prog metal band that's using quarter tone instruments, and how their riffs always just have little scalar things. So yeah, maybe it would be worth transcribing some Angine de Poitrine with his system. Maybe that would make more sense than using quarter tone accidentals. Just a thought. I guess there's that other pop act that was on John Zorn's label. I think they're called Zizzigies. That they also do a lot of that, but with like instruments. Um, so that's what this kind of quarter tone use reminded me of. I can't think of a lot of classical examples, but I can definitely think of some pop examples. So um, yeah, I think that you could find singers that could do a much better job of recording this piece. I think it's deserving of a better recording. Um, but yeah, that wraps up the series. I think I'm just gonna close off, my thoughts on the choir series. Like, it's not really an area of new music that I know a lot about. I think a lot of these pieces are good. I did pad the series with some more chamber vocal pieces. Um, The newest piece was only from 2012, so I think it was definitely lacking in some more new stuff. I'm sure there's lots of more innovative things going on in choir rep right now, but this was the little chunk of history that I had with my scores. But now we can move on, having thoroughly explored those vocal scores. I think I already removed choir from the list, so we should just spin it here. Um, yeah, lots of solo instruments still up on the board. Oh, okay. Trumpet and piano. This one I need to make sure I have enough scores, but I probably do. Enough scores with recordings, I should say. Okay, so of the six scores, I think I have three. So we're just gonna do a very short series. I think three's the minimum I set for myself, of trumpet and piano pieces.